Good evening, and welcome to another week of Moments with Vivacious. I've been waiting for this day to come. Tonight, we have with us royalty in the house, Mr. Prince, and he's gonna talk to us about insurance and investments. And one thing that's big to me that I think a lot of us don't understand, especially when we get older, we want to have money to bury us, but we worked a lifetime for some things we leaving behind. And even with a will, sometimes it stuff just don't go the way we planned it to go. So what do we do? What do we do? We're gonna find out tonight. He's gonna direct us with insurance and finances in the future for our children. Let's build a legacy. Be back in one moment. Welcome to A Moment with Vivacious, a freedom ride where we the people gather to build ourselves, our family, our community, and our nation. For the sound of America for Progress has reached critical mass. Understanding that we must put aside our differences to focus on the greater good. This is a place of collaboration to rebuild and restore our nation. Welcome to A Moment with Vivacious. Good evening, good evening. And this tonight we have with us Mr. Prince. We are so glad to have you with us. Introduce yourself to the audience. Tell a little bit about us and the business that you bring to us tonight. This is all about business.
All right. I started this insurance business pre-COVID, trying to understand how to get my financial house in order. And so when I understand by reading books like Infinite Banking Concepts, I realized that I should have started later paying myself first. Because all these years, you'll have things and it may not go right with the people that's in your life. And you spent a lot of money. And now we're looking at regrouping so that we can have something in our later years. So having something to live off of was something that I had to realize that you can't work forever. If you can't work forever, then what are we doing with our time and our money? So paying yourself first means that we need to grow compound interest on our money so that money continues to grow continually. And that's called accumulation. And once you have enough accumulated, now we can take a distribution for the rest of our life, and we have products and tools to help you with that. So we always say retirement. We just think of the time that I'm going to stop working. Well, if you don't work, then where's the money coming from? So that goes back to paying ourselves first. So that's what I like to talk about. And then also, when it comes to assets, the things you accumulate over life. What about the things that are in your name? Because if you're not here anymore, if anything happens to you, you're unable to make decisions for yourself anymore. We have to start looking at how to transition out of the assets, the property, the things, our accounts, how to actually have that transit. We call it wealth transfer, if which is legacy. How to transfer that wealth so that it stays within your family. And without this transfer, we end up working hard for nothing because a lot of times properties are bought, purchased, and then someone else, from a tax sale purchased the property. So where's the wealth in the family? So we end up losing more than what we were here planning to do with our families. So family is key. And to make families complete, we want to protect our assets and what we work for and create our income so that we can pass it down to the next generation.
And that's really a great start because most times, like my family, we always thought of remembering the old people. The insurance man came around, and and we had life insurance, so they could bury us after they were gone. That's what most people. And what I was concerned about once I had a child, what would happen? I have to leave something in the event that I died that my child would have to live, not thinking that something could happen to me and I don't have to die. I would still be here. She still couldn't get that money that I'm thinking that she's gonna have when I die. Another thing I want to talk about, we then finally we started learning about annuities. So we have annuities. We purchased life insurance with annuities. Explain some of that from us, from where we're going, where we've been, and where we need to go.
Okay. So, a lot of times, we end up buying things like homes, houses, cars. And so all this stuff is in our name. And so, in order for us to avoid even the money in our bank accounts or money that we have from 401ks, so all these things are accumulation of things. And so the goal is to make sure we protect, the money for our loved ones, for ourselves. And so we want to look at first avoiding what we call probate. And a lot of times we don't do a lot of planning. So we just buy and accumulate, and everything's in our name. And then something happens. We didn't think about that because when probate happens, that's when you have to go to court. You have to become like an executor of the estate, and you have to pay a fee to actually, get access to the property based on what's written in the will, if there is one. So based on that, there's normally like family disputes over things, so that people are just trying to find, well, who gave what to who. And when we get into, say, annuities, that's something that we want to be able to use because that's a tool that the money that you have saved up, the money that you accumulate over time, that's a vehicle that can give you benefits. And when we say benefits, we're talking about at no cost, such as a long term care rider built into that policy there. So, long term care, you may not know it, but a lot of people turning 65, 7 out of 10 people end up in long term care. Okay. So that can be built into just from your savings rather than taking out a life policy as a long term care policy. So rather than doing that, paying a lot of money, you can take your savings at no cost, have that rider added built into that policy where you can actually have a stream of income. And we have some products that double your income just in case you get on long term care. Okay. So we're talking about protection here, protection on two things, your money and your health. And so when we get into health, while you're working, you want to have benefits that pay you out for any chronic, critical, or sometimes terminal illness. You have 12 months to live. That's terminal. When we say critical, we have we have critical conditions that you may suffer from, like Lou Gehrig's disease, kidney disease. They're critical. So you have money advanced for you to you, cancer, and that money comes out of policy of the death benefit that you actually paid in for. So you have that to cover you during your working years, just in case there's something that you was unable to do, which is accumulate the amount of money that you plan to do at the end of your working years. So we just want to make sure that when you do save up, have some protection on your life, because sometimes we may end up in a critical situation where we're not able to work anymore. So while you're saving up, we want to protect the health and then also protect the income. And we have that product there, such as the annuity, that can, roll that 401k over into the annuity, and that can create your income stream for the rest of your life. We're talking about a guaranteed income stream
So would
that you
would
cannot outlive.
would your annuity automatically flow over into long-term care?
Yes. So annuity have what we call riders, and long-term care is a rider that can be built into it. Not all annuities have it, but we do have products that have the long-term care rider built into it. So if
Talk
you can
to us
get the
about long-term care. When we talk about long-term care, sometimes we're talking about nursing homes, but some families would keep that person at home. So if
Mhm.
they tell us what is the long-term care and how it could be covered, because that's new to a lot of us.
Okay. So a lot of us has chronic conditions, right? And when we usually turn 65, that's the age where if you're not working anymore, then we end up on Medicare. So Medicare have already has these lists of chronic conditions, and these chronic conditions could be kidney disease, heart disease, lung disease, you name it, diabetes, chronic. These chronic these diseases here. We have what we call long-term care. And so when you need long-term care, that means for the rest of your life, that's kind of most likely permanent. Some long-term care you may be able to get over, but those major diseases like a dialysis, that's long-term care is going to be hard. Feeding tube, long-term care. So when you need that, you're not able to use that part of your body anymore. The part of the body has been, and according to the physician's statement, and according to what we have it's a social worker report. Based on that, hey, this report usually says you're unable to perform 2 out of 6 activities of daily living. So this report says, hey, you're not able to do it. And that diagnosis gives you long-term care. And from there, if you cover with life insurance, we got benefits in there that'll pay you out. And then also with annuity, we have a long-term care rider built into that that'll pay you out. So that's what it's about: protecting your health, protecting your income, so you're not at risk.
So you would get a monthly check
Definitely.
from that account, from the
Yeah.
long care.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right.
Mhm. We've had someone come before, but I want to talk a little bit more about life insurance and the different types of life insurance, which I think when I'm thinking of it, I'm thinking of death insurance. I want to understand how do we, um, what I want to say, how do we profit from life insurance, and how can we be sure that the life insurance is gonna do what we think it's gonna do when we're gone?
Okay. So when you deal with life insurance, um, there's different kinds, right? And usually we deal with term and we deal with permanent. And so the life insurance that we always going to look at is, what is it doing for us? I mean, usually individuals may get life insurance that covers them, we'll say, just in case they die. Like if you're grown up at a certain period of time, you all we thought was life insurance is just in case you die, like burial insurance. That's all we thought it was. But life insurance have grown ever since the 90s. We have benefits, okay? Benefits added to life insurance that makes it to your advantage to have it. So we got provisions for protection. It could be against family needs for your children. You can add riders onto it to protect the terms of your children. You have income replacement to replace income for a certain period of time. So we can do things like that. Even on a term policy, we'll say, hey, we'll get a death benefit. And the only way it can do that is that, you have some living benefits within that policy on a term. And we can use a term to cover us during our working years. And so during our working years, we want to say, hey, I've got 10, 20 years left, whatever that is. That's what the purpose of a term is, to cover you during your working years, because we know a term is not going to last that long. Or to cover you for your mortgage. Some people just get a term to cover it, say, hey, I'm going to be doing this just in case something happens to me before I pay this house off. That's the term insurance. You're only getting coverage for a term. And you're getting a high amount of coverage. Just in case something happens, the house is covered. And you got enough in terms of your working years that you would not be able to work for. So that's your term there. It's much cheaper than the permanent policy. Now, when we get to the permanent policy, this is something that is usually what we call whole life or universal life. It's a different variation of the two. And so, basically the whole life level premiums, they usually for the duration of the policy, unless you specify like a 20 pay, 10 pay, something like that. When we have like a universal life, there's different kinds. Okay. So a lot of times we're just looking at, say, if the older we get and we have health conditions, we want something that's guaranteed issue. So with that, we have a guaranteed issue whole life policy. And that's what we call our GUL policies. And we have those policies that really help you just in case there's any health risk. We have what we call our universal life. And the universal life, we can have another flavor such as our index and index contracts. Those are the contracts that we have familiar with when we talk about investing our money. All right. There are flexible premiums that you can have for the duration of the policy. You can change it. It's a permanent policy. And so they have accelerated benefits. And we're talking about critical chronic illness. Now, not all companies offer that, but that's what you want to check. If you ever get insurance, you want to check to see if we have living benefits. They also call it accelerated death benefits. And so they handle critical chronic illnesses. Plus, all policies come with a terminal illness, and you just have to check to see, well, how many months, if you're diagnosed with a terminal illness, how many months would it be? 12 months from the time of death. How many months you can be able to, receive those funds there? And that's how those policies work. But usually, any critical chronic illness, they can be advanced upon diagnosis. As long as you have a physician statement, you can access that cash from the death benefit, right? So you have them on a term. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I have two questions on the floor.
Okay.
This is Keisha's question. Not many companies offer long-term care anymore. What's a reputable company, and is it very expensive?
Okay. So when you talk about long-term care, we can get that in part of insurance. Now it's very expensive. It's more expensive. So when you're not buying your policy and you're trying to fund your policy, that's going to be really expensive. And yes, we do have companies that have the long-term care on insurance, like a
So
GTL.
what's the difference between buying and funding?
Okay, so when you buy, that means you already have the money. You have the savings. You have that money set aside. You can actually purchase it, right? But when you're not, you don't have that money. You have to fund it. When you fund it, it's like you're gonna have to pay more than a car payment to try to get that money in a premium as to when you can access that death benefit. I mean, yeah, pretty much the cash value out of the policy. So that's where we're trying to do. The death benefit is working with the cash value to provide you protection. But for right now, when you don't have anything, you're trying to fund that policy. Yes, it's going to be a significant payment.
And Dia Scott would like to, this is her question. What kind
Because
of restrictions are there for immediate annuity policy with person is currently on disability?
so what's the conditions of purchasing an annuity policy?
Yeah, when the person is currently if they're already on disability.
Okay. See, there's no health conditions with annuities. Not at all. You got the money, you can purchase it. They just want to know, is that their last money? So we have what we call a suitability test. Suitability is going to look at, is it feasible for you to put this amount of money in it based on your assets, what you have? Is it feasible? Because it's not feasible. You're going to ask for the money back within a year. It's probably not a good fit. So that's the suitability you have to go through, and that's not a problem. We always do an assessment and to make sure that it's suitable for the right product. But annuities, you can get them anywhere from 5,000, 10,000 up. All right. As far as that long-term care, the reason why we didn't want to, long-term care, let's look at long-term care as how it can be done. It can be done in assisted living facilities. It can be done in nursing home. It can be done at home. What the long-term care is providing a service for is most likely those PTs, OTs, those people that are doing the work, and they get paid by the hour. And this is a lot of them get paid out of pocket. This is not what insurance is covering. Insurance may cover maybe 20 visits if you have Medicare or you have a health care plan, but insurance is not going to foot that bill. We're talking about long-term care. You need this service. You need recovery care. So with long-term care, you're paying a good significant amount of money. You're paying like someone's salary out of long-term care. That's why trying to fund that could be significant. So the work that goes into long-term care is either within a facility or you're building out an area in your home to have those services done. And you're talking about professionals coming to make sure you're getting the help and support you need. So those professionals, they charge 50. They charge, like a salary, like a good salary. I mean, hourly job. If you got them for the whole year, 3 years, 4 years, That's what you're doing, getting ready to pay someone's salary.
So let me ask this. Um,
And then, excuse me,
when,
one more thing is
okay,
that sometimes long-term care will pay for your housing in those facilities. It could be 3,000 a month, 5,000 a month. So we're looking at how much cash you have stored up to pay for those facilities.
so when people that's of age, like retiring now, they bought these policies they've been paying on since way back. And sometimes when they die, there's not even enough money to bury them.
Right.
Is there anything possible that's there that can help people that have reached retirement age?
Oh yeah, definitely. We have one of our whole life policies called final expense, and all there's a lot of carriers that do final expense, but a lot of them don't do. They don't help you with the funeral planning, funeral arrangements. They don't help you plan the final wishes. They don't help you do the negotiation of the cost of the casket, the flowers, the whole attire that needed, the whole planning of the service, the viewing of the body. So that's the thing there. Someone at the funeral home is looking to take advantage by asking you for your policy, and we're not here to do that. So without having a proper company and just having a policy, a final instance policy, they could take the whole thing and dish out a lot of money for themselves. So the company I'm associated with, Lincoln Heritage, can provide that service where we take care of all the funeral arrangements for the amount that you would get covered for on final expense. Because the first thing is we're looking at, are you doing traditional funeral? Are we doing cremation? If so, what are the additional services you would need with that? And that's what we look at in terms of the final expense. They're really affordable for anyone that's 65 and up. Once you start hitting the 80s, some carriers stop to reject those applications, but the goal is to want to sure you get them within, as soon as you hit 60, anywhere from, I would say, 50 to 70, even late 70s, you can get these policies very cheap. Once you get up in the 70s, it can get expensive, but you can get 74-year-old right around anywhere from 102 to and up for $10,000. Okay. Now the average funeral is going to cost anywhere from about 12 to 15,000.
So what do you tell me? Because I want to understand, and I want to make sure everybody else understands. So if we wanted that policy, if we were 60 years old and we wanted that policy, we have to pay $10,000 for that policy, or do we make monthly payments? Am I understanding?
So there's a monthly. Remember, whole life is a premium that's paid. It's a fixed level premium, and you get a certain amount of death benefit. So this is whole life. It's a permanent policy that you pay every month. It's a set price. So when I mentioned the 74-year-old, she pays anywhere from $100 and up. And up could be 200. It could be 150. So, but we got different carriers here that can negotiate the pricing for you. So that's what I do. I do quotes. I look at all the carriers and look at what you can afford. Then I have a company that comes with a funeral guardian society where ex-funeral directors, they actually help you take the costs, negotiate them, and really get all your wishes done, all your funeral arrangements. They take care of all that built into the plan of the final expense policy. So it's a whole life policy that you pay anywhere from it should be around $100 depending on how old you are and the state you're in and things like that. But for the most part, once you start hitting the late 70s, it can go up. Late 70s can go up. But I just quoted someone in mid 70s and it's around $100 something. So it's available. And we're talking about a quote for a $10,000 policy. Now, if you have, say, any health conditions that we talk about in terms of chronic conditions, those conditions may make the policy have a 2-year wait. Okay. But we have benefits So, say if you happen to get in an accident, that accident could actually advance your money same day coverage. When we say same day coverage, it's just like the coverage of a healthy person. When you get the policy and you pay for it, most healthy people, when you get a policy, we're talking about a final expense policy. When you get it, you're covered same day, 100% of the death benefit. Okay. But when you have a chronic condition, you're not covered 100%. Usually, you have to wait 2 years, and the premiums that you pay into the policy is what you receive 100%. Some may give you 110% of what you paid into the policy the first 2 years. But if you pass the second year and you had that chronic condition, then you're getting 100%. But like I said, with our company, Lincoln Heritage, they will, if you have an accident at any time and you had a chronic condition, will pay your money as if you're same day coverage and you didn't have no issues. So those are the options there.
Keisha has a
I mean,
question.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Will it cover custodial care like nursing assistants?
So final expense, right? It is exactly what it says. It's your final expenses if something was to happen to you. It's a whole life policy. See, whole life policies don't have the flexibility as what we're talking about here with doing it. We're talking about this whole life policy here that we're talking about is just for covering those last final wishes or those final expenses. So we're talking about death. Okay.
Mhm.
And so, say if you were to, get a final expense policy, and usually final expense policy, the maximum you can get is usually around 50,000. So if you built up enough cash value in that policy, where you wanted to access some of the cash out of policy earlier, you could. That's what we call the cash value. So you can go and borrow against that cash that's in there and use it for whatever you need it for, and it's just going to subtract from your death benefit. So it's how you want to use the policy. But when we're talking about paying people out of that, usually it's just for your expenses because it's not a lot. All right.
Yes.
We wouldn't usually pay people out at a final expense out of that because the proceeds are really is just for the person who took it out. It's an insurance policy against death. You can access cash value depending on how much you put into it.
So which insurance that we're talking about right now will cover nursing assistants in the home?
So when you talk about long-term care, that's life insurance with long-term care built into it, or we're talking about annuity with long-term care built into it. So the policy is designed either for long-term care with life insurance, or the annuity is designed for that. That's what we're talking about. So if you have money saved up where you can purchase the policy, it's easier to do it with an annuity. Why? Because you're not paying for long-term care. Your money pays for it, and the built-in um, rider, the long-term care rider, it actually on some companies have a feature where it would double the amount of money that you receive on a monthly basis. So those are the options when it comes to long-term care where you would go for that.
And can we talk about um, investment along with your insurance policy?
Yeah. And
That good
before,
or bad?
yeah, and before we go into the investment, I just wanted you to know that if you apply for any life insurance, there is a health background, health questions. When you do annuities, there's no health questions. Okay. The
Okay.
health questions are not a factor if you get approved for annuity. Okay. But when you are doing life insurance, definitely they're going to be looking at your medical records, your history, and getting you approved for that life insurance policy. So that's the difference between the two there, how you want to choose to do long term care.
Okay.
All right. Now, you want to talk about investments?
You're right.
Okay. So, investments. When you're looking at investments, most of us, we work a job and we put the money into, say, a 401k, right? We invest it there. And we have, maybe we invest the money in different stocks within the 401k or different funds, mutual funds. So that's to the extent of that. But when we're using, say, and then some people do have their money with a security exchange broker that they, we call them fund managers, market managers, and they actually take your money and they actually do place the trades on your money. So when they place the trades on your money, that's, them growing the money for you. So they're your money manager, and usually they're paid a fee to do that. Okay. Now the risk is you don't know how that person does perform. It has to be really, really good to do that. They can grow that money. Some can get a return of the 20%. You just don't know. Every year they're responsible for growing your money. And what your return is by the end of the year, that's what you receive. Now, when we work with annuities or say uh, life insurance, we use index contracts. Okay. So these index contracts, these are contracts that actually, when the market goes up, your money goes up. When the market goes down, your money stays at a level and it does not go below that level. So wherever your money was, it stays there. It doesn't go below. That's what an index contract does. It locks your money in at that index. So it's a guaranteed minimal rate that you will receive is very small, but your money wouldn't go below that. So index contracts is what we would do to prevent any loss of your market. That's how we protect your income. So whatever you have invested in, say, in a market, whichever fund you choose to do that, you'll look at the next year from your anniversary date, your effective date, the date the policy went in effect, and you'll see, okay, this is how much my money grew. I've got to invest in the right place. So there's not really a market manager looking at that money. You can choose every year where you want your money to be invested. So that's a way to grow your money, whether it be in life insurance or annuities.
What's the safest way to protect your money and your assets?
Okay. So when you say money, money isn't going to be in something, right? So most people have their money in the banks, but you got your money in life insurance, it doesn't go to probate. You got your money in the annuity, it doesn't go to probate. So it's protected. It goes to the beneficiary without going to probate. Okay. You got your money in the bank, something happens to you, it's not protected. And where is it going? It's going to be locked up. Bank's not going to give you any money at all. Doesn't matter how close a relative you are to the individual that passed. Not at all. Not going to give you money. Got to go to the court and become the executor of the state. And to do that, and so that's where we get into situations with families that actually look at, what happened to our, what there's no discussions around what would happen to the, uh, the money. And then when we get to the property, the assets, this is where, sometimes people get a little bit upset. You didn't have any will. You didn't write me anything. You didn't leave me anything. So that goes back to the court. I mean, it's like, you acquired something, but now what happens after you acquired it? You have no more control. So your family has you have what families have to maintain control of what you accumulate. Even if you got on good talking terms, whatever you have to maintain your legacy. And a lot of people may not have these open discussions about the values, any traditions, culture, family, financial matters. They may not have it. So you want to start getting educated about it so you feel empowered about how you can exercise your right to actually have a family business. And that's what you got to look at, because without business, we are not coming together to actually make decisions. When you work as business, it's just like we're working for someone else. So creating a family mission statement. This is what we're here to do. We may be doing different things, but together as family, we come together as a funeral, but we don't come together for business. That's a problem. because a funeral is still business. Somebody's making money. Somebody's doing the eulogy. Somebody's doing something. All that whole process is business. It's a structure. You're paying someone else to do all that. That's business.
Even make the T-shirts.
Yeah. Yup. The flower, the everything that has to go into that funeral is business. So why are we not talking about family business, right? So we got to use trust to help us with some of this estate planning. This is your estate. When you go to court, you're going to court for the estate of the person. What all did they have that they owned, and then where's it going to go? So that's how we're getting to trust. Trust helps you secure your legacy. It helps future asset protection. So, a lot of times we're not thinking about that. You know, the top concerns when it comes to protecting your assets for future generations, what are they? We only think about today, just us. There's grandchildren, children after that. Who's going to take on the responsibility? Sometimes we want to take the responsibility to our grave and not even plan it with those that are coming after us. And what's going to be next? What's the inheritance? So it's really how much we care and love each other. All right. Because that's what trust is all about. Do you trust someone to be the controller? They're going to control how things are going to be managed. And then here's our beneficiaries. And then here's pretty much, something that we can say that our assets are protected. We have it and it's documented and we know everything is.
Well, I think a trust, I want you to expound on that a little bit, because I have a family member who left a will. She,
Okay.
she left a will, but we didn't set family business, and
Okay.
she didn't have a trust. So now her whole everything is deteriorating because it wasn't protected. So can we expound on that, please?
Yeah. So a trust is a legal arrangement where one party, the trustee, that's the person who controls it, they hold the assets for the benefit of another, usually the beneficiary. So the beneficiary is the person who's going to receive those benefits at a certain time. So there's different types of trust, but the main goal of a trust is to protect your assets, right? There's a testimony trust. There's things that are put in the trust after the death. There's living trust. While you're living, you're accumulating things, you're putting in the trust. There's revocable, irrevocable trust. And it's all about protections. Because with some trusts, they protect creditors from coming after the estate. So it's really about how you set up the trust and what you want to do to protect your property.
And prior to tonight, someone asked me, could we discuss tonight the difference between revocable and irrevocable
Okay.
trust?
So when it comes to a trust, designing a trust is the process of understanding how you want it. So while you're living, they call it living because you can make changes to the trust. You can make changes to the documentation, but when it's irrevocable, you cannot make any changes to that trust. And because it's irrevocable, it does have more protections than revocable. Because usually revocable is have someone that's actually the guarantor, and as a guarantor, that person can be liable, and that trust maybe it can be pierced. So we don't want anyone to come after anything in the trust. So once it's irrevocable, they cannot. And the good thing about trust is it avoids the probate process. Um, so there's no court proceedings in that. You don't have to worry about the lengthy, costly time that it takes to get your assets back. You have to worry about that. So you have full control of the assets, and you avoid family disputes because everything's written in the trust. You already planned it. So this is prior planning prevents poor performance of everybody coming together. And then loss of privacy. Well, you got privacy because you have a trust. So it's nothing public. It's not nothing public going to be about that. Right. So the benefits is always about reducing taxes. How you have the trust set up, you can reduce taxes, and you got control over your assets. So you know who's going to receive what is already in the trust to receive who's going to receive which assets.
And once, or a trust can be who is over it, never, and then they give out what you want. How does it work in conjunction with a will? Or do it work in conjunction with a will?
So a will is just, a document that you're saying, hey, these are my final wishes of what I'm looking to accomplish here. And so if you go to court, then everybody will see what it has. But a will is just more instruction that you would have. It's just instruction. That's all it is, just instruction. Okay. And then in court, it's just proof to say who gets what. That's it. Right. But when you have a trust, you're not going before anyone. You have control. You keep the control within the family and you protect from creditors. So that's what it's about, shielding you from creditors and lawsuits so it stays in the family. You always want to keep your family affairs private. And that's why I say family is business. Because when you don't meet about these things, then we're not looking at, you're looking at somebody else making money off the family, whether it be in a funeral, whether it be in a court, that's what's taking place. Somebody's making money off the family, right? Because we didn't sit down, family didn't sit down and make sure that they specify the terms of how the beneficiaries are going to receive the assets. You're putting this into the trust, it's family trust, who's going to receive what. So we don't make poor financial decisions.
Yeah, because I know someone, everything was in their name, and then something happened, and the insurance money came in their name and they were deceased. So the family couldn't take care of the incident that had happened.
Yeah. So with it being your name, they may have a will, usually a will, a last will and testament. Usually it's going to have like a guardian for your minor children. It may dictate how your assets going to go upon death, but you're still going to go to court. Um, you may have an advance directive, a living will. It's just instructions for the physicians, their intentions for your life support in just case you become unconscious or you terminally get ill. So, those are things there. But our goal is just to, once you know, you have everything in your name and you don't do anything about it, um, that's a problem. And so business is solving problems. That's what business is. So are we coming together to solve problems and then creating what we call a trust, or we're just gonna let life be and just keep running around in circles? That's all we're doing, running around in circles. Everything's in our name. We're not learning life lessons.
So is it a trust? Um, I'm gonna say kin for lack of other words. Kin to an estate. What's the difference between estate and a trust?
Okay. So your estate is pretty much what you own. It's pretty much your estate would be your home, it'd be your car, everything that you own, that's your estate. Okay. So what a trust does, it keeps your estate, your settlements out of the public process of probate.
Okay. And that means whoever I choose to take care of this, it just goes directly to them or to
So
the state.
so when you have a trust, you have what we call a trustee. That trustee is they control everything, but they don't own anything, right? Then you
Yeah.
have your beneficiaries. Okay. The beneficiary says, okay, this is when it comes time, it's instructions for the trustee to execute this at the time of death or whenever the time is that you want to give to them. Or you may have in the trust, you've probably seen some movies that said they had to get a good credit score, they had to have a job, they had to have this, and then they will receive whatever that inheritance was,
Yes.
that lump sum money, whatever. So that's the instructions that you could leave in the trust, that you can have in the trust for that trustee to execute and to give to them at that time. So that's what you will have there.
I,
Um,
I I'm sorry. Go ahead.
yeah. So most of the times when we're looking at estate, we're looking at it's pretty much ownership, everything that you've owned in your life, because that's what you're going to court for. You're going to court for the estate. You look up all these court proceedings, you'll see the estate of who is going to be somebody's name. And so everything that they own, that's what you can't touch this, you can't touch that, you can't touch anything. You go into court for someone's estate, and that's why someone has to be appointed as the executor of the estate. So with a trust, you protect the estate. It keeps the estate settlements out of the probate process, out of the public. Public won't even know it. So because if you're going in public record, can actually you can go and look up and see who's in probate right now, and you can talk to the family members. There's a probate process that used to be in real estate, and you can actually see houses in probate. And when you see those houses, talk to the family members and see if you can get a good deal, right? Because sometimes they don't know what to do with the house. They didn't plan for it. They didn't take care of business, or maybe the person just was unwilling to talk to them about it. Whatever the case be, we got houses in probate now. You can go in as public access. Whatever county you're in, you can go and look at that. Might get a good deal.
Oh wow. Well, this has been very, very, very good information, and it's sure gonna have us thinking and moving forward with preparing ourselves for our future. So again, I would like you to introduce yourself and give us information if anyone would like to contact you um, after this show concerning their estate and their trust and their insurance. How do we contact you, and can you help us even in that area?
Yeah. Usually, I'm available. I do have an appointment link. I'm not sure if I share that with you, but usually by booking appointments, that'd be the best way. And I could probably leave that with you. But also, you can reach out to my number, my business line at 470-648-5968.
And I will post that on Facebook.
Okay. And the whole goal here is to look at transitioning out of work into preserving your wealth. We start with increasing your cash flow, your debt, managing your debt, looking at having an emergency fund 3 to 6 months, and then having that proper protection we talked about, life insurance. Let's look at that protection. All right. You got to protect the health. You got to protect your income. If you're working, you got to protect that. And if you have money in savings, got to protect that. Then as you're accumulating, we're building wealth. And as you build wealth, now we got to preserve it to reduce taxation. So those are the vehicles we talked about, the life insurance, the annuities, and it's a safe way of growing your money without having market loss. Otherwise, you're paying a fund manager, not to say that they can't do it, but you have to find out what you're going to do with their money after they grow it. And we're still back to creating that lifetime guarantee. Anybody can grow the money, but what are you going to do after the money's grown? We have 3 phases of how you will actually invest your money. First is your contributions. That's funding the policy that we talked about with that long-term care. You're just funding, you put money in. Then once you got a big bucket of money, you call it accumulation. You've grown it at a certain level. Now we can do projections on that money and see, well, how much if I have now that I can live off for the rest of my life? Because do you need 80,000, 100,000? Well, how much do I have to accumulate to get that? Right. So those are the things you want to look at to preserve your wealth, so that you pay your salary. You pay yourself a salary. You don't have to what we call downsize what you've accumulated in life.
This has been very, very, way, very good. This is so very good. I'm gonna pay to publish this because so many of us need to hear it. So many. I can just think of family members right now that that need to hear this and hurry up and fix stuff.
Yeah. And we didn't touch a lot of stuff, but the most important thing is outliving your money. Are we preparing for that? You got so much risk. You got market risk, you got deflation, your money's losing money because it's not getting good interest on your money. You thought it is, but you don't know. That's deflation. You got withdrawal rate risk. You want to take your money out, but you don't know the risk on how much you're taking out and how much that's going to cost you for taking it out. And then, you got inflation risk, you got taxation risk, you got mortality. Just in case you die, what happens? Then you got the long-term care risk. So we got all these risks. What's most important? You outliving your money. So let's pay ourselves first, and we can take care of all these things. All right.
Thank you so much for being here tonight, Prince. And I'm going to put your contact information up on my Facebook page. And also, when I share tonight's show, I'm going to share your contact information. This was very good.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Anytime. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it. All right.